The Union Justice Network is commemorating the 300th anniversary of Nano's birth by reflecting on three questions. First, when you think of Nano spending herself for the poor, what comes to mind for you? Second, as a follower of Nano, can you recall how in your ministry you have cared for those left behind? Third, who are the poor of today? How are you, Presentation family, showing concern for them?
At her great capacity for love, her love for God, her love for her people. And because of that love, she was able to see the suffering, the misery, the oppression of her people. And compelled by love, she had to do something for the ones left behind in her time. As we know, she began with little schools for the children, rightly thinking, I'd say, that through education, freeing them from ignorance, would there be progress and liberty for the children. But Nano didn't stop with educating the children only. She also reached out to other people left behind. She visited the imprisoned, she brought relief to the sick, and I'd say she interacted and visited with the families of her students.
Knowing the importance of education, she wanted to share this with other children not as fortunate as she was.
That time it was not easy for her. She had to take a risk to do what she did.
And for me, it has to be the Spirit of God working in her, because she was an extraordinary woman, and I often think of the extraordinary life that she lived. Like, she was one who never experienced in her own life what it was like to be left behind.
Her compassion for the people who were left behind.
My first picture is always of Nano solitary alone there in the chapel, praying before the Blessed Sacrament after spending many hours treading the streets of Cork.
What impelled her was, I feel, is her sister's sacrifice when she sold that silk robe to help the poor.
तीसरा बदलाव, जब वो फ्रांस में पढ़ रही थी, तब आयरलैंड के गरीब बच्चों की आवाज़, चीख पुकार उनको सुनाई दे रही थी। उनको ये चीख पुकार बार बार परेशान कर रही थी। वो वापस आयरलैंड आकर गरीब बच्चों व असहाय लोगों की मदद करने लगी एवं अपना पूरा जीवन उनको समर्पित कर दिया।
Nano took stand in favor of the underprivileged, understood the realities of their situation with compassion, committed herself for their liberation by using education as a powerful weapon.
Nano Nagel's experience sharpened her awareness to the conditions and miseries of the Irish people during her time.
She drew her strength from her great faith and her close relationship with God and her trust in God's providence.
Was that Nano really knew and lived the gospel. She knew that if the gospel is not good news for the poor, it is not the gospel of Jesus Christ.
I believe that Nano Nagel was able to see what other people in society were not able to see, and that was very much individuals who were left outside of the supports and the structures that others in society at that time were able to rely on.
The greatest inspiration of Nano was to achieve and guarantee education for children and young people, regardless of the risks in the strict penal laws against Catholics at the time, and especially the consequences that could happen.
She says that it was the circumstances, the word she uses, the circumstance of her sister Anne having given away a roll of silk which Nano had planned for making a dress for herself. And later on, and this is recorded in the annals of Sarah's presentation and also recorded by Walsh, she says that it was this trifling circumstance that motivated her to consecrate her life to God in the service of the poor. And I like the sequence in which that's placed. consecrate her life to God in the service of the poor. So I think for Nano, she didn't see any dichotomy between her love for God, consecrating her life to God, and the service of the poor. It was the one thing for her. So, to answer your question in a nutshell, I think it was the love of God drove her into responding in compassion to the needs that she saw.
For Nano, each person was so important that she could not neglect anyone. She was very inclusive and embraced everyone with a loving service. Understood that these poor people had riches of another kind. They had the love of God, which was more valuable than the riches of this world.
Tina koto, tina koto, tina koto katoa.
Well, I know that she was born into an Irish family and that family was wealthy, and she was moved over to France to get an education.
I know that she started 5 schools for girls and 2 schools for boys because she thought that kids also needed education.
Well, I was in India for 21 years, and for some of that time, I was up in a hill school in Kodaikanal down South India.
Yeah.
And there were children of every nationality, you might say, and certainly of every religion. And a group of girls, we got together, and because we had a village school in the same compound, every now and again we would go down and help, but the girls would go down and help serve the midday meal that we gave them. And in this way they got to know the children, and they also saw the needs of some of the children.
If you spend a long time in prison, very often your family forget about you, or they can no longer cope with visiting you. And after a long time you may just find yourself that there's no place for you outside. The only place for you is in a prison. So you come out and you're homeless. And I remember being very disturbed about this, and I remember asking a group of people to come with me and to think about this, to try and come up with a response to the issue.
We were able to inspire the community to come together. They all came and helped each other. We got paint from the county council. The residents all came together, helped each other, painted the houses, and I was able to facilitate that by ordering the power hoses and running the bills and getting the colour cards.
A small boy, a Hindu boy of about 9 years old, came to me crying, weeping, and begging me to help him to continue his studies in his school. He told me that he is not allowed to continue his studies because they have not paid their fees. I requested the principal, who was a priest, asking him to give them some concessions. You won't believe that after a few days, our joy knew no bounds when we came to know these children were granted full concessions and were allowed to continue their studies.
जिसका नाम मीनू है, उसके परिवार वाले बहुत ही पुराने ख्यालात के हैं। वे लोग अपने बच्चों को आगे पढ़ने के लिए और उनको आगे कोर्स पढ़ाने के लिए बहुत भेदभाव करते हैं। मैं उनके घर गई और उनको समझाया। आज वो लड़की अपना कोर्स पूरा करने के लिए आ रही है। मेरे सभी बच्चों के साथ साथ एक बुद्धिहीन बच्ची भी पढ़ रही थी, जिसे कुछ भी समझ नहीं था। मैंने उसको पढ़ाकर उसको पढ़ना लिखना सिखाया। आज वो लड़की बहुत अच्छी तरीके से पढ़ सकती है, बहुत समझ सकती है।
This is our heritage, to spend ourselves for the poor, for the ones left behind, and I dare say, to also be rebels, to bring about justice. One would think that in the US, one of the wealthiest nations in the world, that there would be no one left behind. But that is not the case, unfortunately.
Everybody needs a place to call home. To address this need, it was decided we would create a program designed to help people stay in their homes by supplying funds for rent and utilities. We could help them get a home, but so often other needs interfered, and they needed their rent money for food or transportation. It was a vicious circle.
In St. Benedict's during the war years, there was terrible suffering. The children were called out at night for meetings, and some of them had to watch their parents being beaten to death sometimes. They were called sellouts. And again, there were villages bombed out. And I remember going there, and we went out and just brought clothes and food. Their homes were bombed out.
Because of the examples of Nano Nego, what she did for the poor, we also, being friends of Nano, we are trying to help the poor, most especially the vulnerable children who are not able to go to school. In our time, the children were taken care of the orphans, more especially those because of the HIV and AIDS. We are doing advocacy in our community to listen to the cry of the earth, being driven by the three core values as friends of Nano, where partner with the divine and passion for the poorest and covenant with the creation. So this now, our country or maybe the world at large are implementing the SDGs. So I'm also one of those who have been involved to do advocacy, do trainings over the SDGs so that our people are aware of what is happening in our communities.
When I was working in Montanati, which was part of Coke Foundation, a special unit for children with learning difficulties, there were some individual children who needed extra help and they didn't get it, unfortunately. So, not on my own, but in conjunction with other teachers, we literally fought the Department of Education to give us more helps in the line of special needs assistance when they weren't giving them from the Department of Education, and then speech and language therapists, physiotherapists and psychologists.
As a presentation family, we are called to join hands with all the people, irrespective of caste, creed, and color, to promote peace, justice, and love, and to recall and fulfill the Nano's last word: love one another as you have hitherto done.
The presentation sisters in St. John's saw a need 24 years ago and were instrumental in helping to bring this service to the city. And it is about creating space and dignity and providing support to the rest of us. So many of us take for granted for individuals who are outside of the necessities of life, who are homeless, who have addictions. They are the invisible. They are the individuals that so often are completely ignored, whether it's government policy, if it's housing strategies. They are the forgotten.
When I retired from teaching in the regular school system, I volunteered at the Brother T.I. Murphy Centre, an alternate school for dropouts. They had to be 18 years and older. The regular system did not meet their needs. They were certainly those who were left behind.
This is the story of Ramar, a poor boy who came to join our program and whose father works in the sugarcane field and receiving a little earning, not enough for the food of the family. Ramar went through education with the help of the center and was very good in his studies. He did very well and received many awards.
My life was changed by my exposure to those left behind. I graduated as a teacher and was assigned to the presentation center in Don Salvador Benedicto, which is located in a mountain area of Negros Occidental. Even though I came from a poor family, I got a good education. Now I see that I have relatively privileged family life. There in that mountain area, I saw that for these peasant farmers, life is a struggle to survive, an everyday struggle. Their children are being left behind by the government's educational system.
So why did you choose to work with them at Our Lady of Cavity School?
Well, we've seen how the school
is working with the children, instilling the values of Nano. And as friends of Nano, we thought there was a good practical opportunity here for us and the children to work together and to build a relationship with the residents of the retirement village that's right next door to the school.
And from that, we've seen a real richness develop between the children and the school and the residents. And the residents tell us that they really miss the children when the noise and the activity, and they love looking over their backyards and seeing it. And in the holidays, they really miss this activity.
They also go one step beyond by initiating various programs like Sustainable Development Goals in collaboration with the United Nations, and also by arranging various workshops. In addition to this, they are also successfully carrying out their mission by helping poor people in the bleakest moment of their lives. In this context, they have successfully targeted the remote areas stretching from the desert of Sindh all the way up to the valley of Sawant. I would like to add that because of their effort, bonded labourers in Sindh are now able to stand on their feet and are earning respectfully.
I often think back now, prisoners and ex-prisoners are very much part of the life of the North East Province. This is where it all began, and they're continuing to support it. And recently, we feel that we're now moving into the whole area of families of prisoners. What's there for them? How can we help them? Because it's difficult to have someone in prison belonging to you, but to be a family member, I have seen people visiting prison year in, year out. For years they come and they get very little support, very little help, very little encouragement. So we're looking now at how can we respond to the needs of the families of those in prison, and that's in line with this, the Year of the Family, and this is a short response that we're making as well. And this is something that the congregation has taken on, and it's a work in action and something we're very committed to.
So, if the past was a struggle, the future is ours now. A part of our work in Ecuador is with indigenous communities to increase efforts and opportunities through development projects so that people have a better quality of life without discrimination, gender equality, health education, and especially culture and art. The big difference is that now we are a globalized world, and through advocacy we ensure that it is the responsibility of the state and civil society to establish law and to protect the most vulnerable people.
Today, in 21st century, having been in a fragile and vulnerable season of my own health life, I was deeply awakened to this ministry of visiting and accompanying sick, elderly and neglected people in their homes and in 2 hospitals each week. This enables me to glimpse, listen to and understand some of the inner landscape of our people, their dignity, fragility, pain, vulnerability, worries, hopes and deep silence. Through advocacy with 6 local women, journeying through group formation, dialogue and experiences of visiting sick and elderly, we dare to lift the lowly from the dust. We continue this, our lanterns aflame with love and compassion, to walk tomorrow's road.
Then when we look at the map of the world and we see all the places where we are taking that message of Nano, the message of Jesus, go out, teach all nations, teach them about love.
I myself, in the last 4 months, have been ministering in a parish that is majority immigrants. But I'm finding that I needed to create spaces for encounter with them, to get to know one another, to build trust, so that together we can do something, we can be accompanying one another.
The number of families served has also grown from 38 to 613 households. The present structure gives some assurance that presentation partners and housing can go on even if Presentation Sisters are no longer directing or funding the program. In the meantime, we are doing what needs to be done.
I am part of the committee of Garden of Oneness, and this Garden of Oneness is a home in our community here in Namilangi, which is a great opportunity where people come to learn the oneness with the whole of creation, that we need to live in interconnectedness with nature. The love story of God, where we are connected. Also involved in sharing this good news with the larger community so that we live in harmony with nature and with each other.
And I'm delighted with all you're doing about the environment, because I'm just doing that at sea with my students at the moment.
वो समझ सकती है जिस तरीके से नैनो ने अपने इस कार्य को लगातार आगे बढ़ाती रही, नैनो के इस कार्य को हम भी आगे बढ़ाते रहें और जो बच्चे अपनी ज़िंदगी में पीछे हैं उनको आगे लाकर उनकी ज़िंदगी को संवारने का पूरा कोशिश करें.
At the gathering place, they're called by name, they have a sense of dignity, they have place, this is their place. And that concept and every interaction is really rooted in the charism of the Presentation Sisters, which I believe is also the charism of Nano. And so for me it's particularly wonderful to be part of this and to really be able to learn and draw from the wisdom of the sisters, and it's been a real privilege to be part of this because it is the work that Nano started so long ago.
In our Presentation Sisters program, Romar's story is one of the many who finished and became successful. They would come back and visit us and share their experiences. And it is good to hear when they say, what we are now is due to the work of the Presentation Sisters.
Now as a presentation associate, I still have regular contact with these poor people through outreach programs. I go to my regular work in Binalbagan Catholic College, but during Christmas season or summer, I made sure to visit those made poor. My life is more meaningful and also richer because of my exposure to the poor oppressed of my country. I thank God that I have had this experience.
I am glad that I am part of the international congregation which is involved in very meaningful ministries that promotes the dignity of every human being and the cosmos. Our spirituality of being in communion invites us to be interconnected with all of God's creation. It calls us forth to a realization of being beloved of God, being heart-centered women like Mary and Nano, to live the Eucharistic love poured out. We work towards sustainable living, protection and safety of the vulnerable people like women and children. Through these ministries, kept Nano aflame.
Could you tell me how the Presentation Sisters follow the example of Nano in their effort to leave no one behind?
ดิฉันได้เห็นและได้สัมผัสถึงความรักของคุณแม่นาโนเนเกอร์ผ่านทางการดำเนินชีวิตของบรรดาซิสเตอร์ไม่ว่าจะเป็นการสวดภาวนาการสอนคำสอนตามหมู่บ้านการเยี่ยมผู้ป่วยการดูแลเด็กๆในศูนย์การอบรมแนะนำบรรดาเด็กๆและพี่เลี้ยงซึ่งแสดงให้เห็นถึงความรักของคุณแม่นาโนเนเกอร์มากยิ่งขึ้น
Thank you, Pinnappa, for sharing your experience of the Presentation Sisters in Thailand. Thank you.
No matter how old we are or which part of the world we live in, this light that Nano has lit in us will become a glowing fire as we in turn continue doing our work.
All presentation people in Ireland and in England are involved in lobbying and advocacy work. In particular in Ireland we're concerned with homelessness. We're concerned with the right to work for the asylum seekers, and also we will be concerned with climate change. And these are the issues that I have noticed mostly that presentation people engage in, whether it's a petition, a letter, a meeting, a phone call, to a parliamentarian or somebody who is in that place of authority. In England, the issues that concern us in particular are those to do with trafficking. They're to do with the lack of welcome or the increase in the hostility of the welcome that appears to be the case for those who come to England's new shores. In general, the presentation people in Ireland and England advocate for those who are left behind and for those who cannot advocate for themselves, to help their voice be heard at a level where change might occur. We give voice to many of the issues that concern presentation people. And advocacy isn't just about meeting the politician or writing the letter, although primarily that is the case. It's also about talking and listening and making sure that those are aware. Part of our work too would be to create an awareness campaign around many of the issues that those in power would hope are forgotten. We urge all to advocate, we urge all to lobby. This is part of our work if we are to be sure that we will leave no one behind.
For many generations, presentation people around the world have provided services like education and healthcare. Today, especially as IPA, we know that in the face of huge global inequalities and the pollution and degradation of our earth, we must speak out. We must advocate with and on behalf of the excluded and exploited. I collaborate with other organisations, like members of other religious congregations, the National Coalition 2030 and our Diocesan Justice and Peace Committee, working to raise public awareness, advocating and lobbying decision makers in Europe, Ireland, local authorities and business to honour the rights and dignities of those who are constantly being left behind, to respect and care for our environment and to implement all 17 Sustainable Development Goals.
In Zimbabwe, we did advocacy for peace before, during, and after elections. We built capacity of people to know about rights holders and duty bearers and work together with local council. We take opportunities to hold campaigns and create awareness on issues of concern during International Solidarity Days. In our advocacy for environmental protection, on 22nd March Water Day, students together with the local council campaigned for clean and safe drinking water. Advocacy for planting trees in 8 schools during the rainy season.
Beat plastic pollution! Beat plastic!
As a group, we have gone around sensitizing the people, sensitizing the headmen, sensitizing at schools, even at the council, and I've seen a lot of changes. People are now aware that they have to take care of the earth. They have to take care of the environment.